Words at War.
You folks at home probably read about the trial in the papers. It must have sounded pretty terrible. An officer of the American Air Corps on trial for robbing Italian peasants. Since it was a military matter, I don't suppose the papers over here ever carried a follow-up story on it. Anyhow, now that I'm back on furlough, I'd like very much to tell you the real story of Lieutenant Eddie Amato's court-martial. What lay behind it. How it finally turned out. I know the story at first hand. I was flight surgeon of Eddie's squadron.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another program in the series Words at War. All of us on Words at War are more than a little proud that this week our program has been honored by a special citation from Variety, the trade paper of show business. In awarding this citation, Variety characterized Words at War as one of the most outstanding programs in current radio. Thank you, Variety. Tonight it's Elliot Arnold's novel of democracy in war-torn Italy. Tomorrow We'll Sing.
In February of that year, our B-24 squadron was transferred from North Africa to an air base near Foggia, Italy. I remember the day we landed. The rain was coming down in hatfuls, and the boys were pretty disappointed in their first glimpse of the country.
So, this is sunny Italy. Give me Chicago any day, Doc.
I see what you mean, Kelly. No Chamber of Commerce here, huh?
Hey, Eddie, you didn't tell us about this. Why don't you warn us?
Well, look, Kelly, all I know about this place is what my father used to tell me. He was born here, not me.
Now, you have some relatives near here, haven't you, Eddie?
Yeah. An uncle of mine's got a farm somewhere around Foggia.
And who cares about your uncles? Haven't you got any good-looking cousins? Female cousins?
Oh, listen to him, will you, Doc? Kelly, you talk like a man with a paper tongue.
It turned out that Eddie's uncle had a farm just a few miles from the base. So after we got settled, Eddie and I piled into a Jeep and drove over there. The old man was polite, but reserved.
I am Gennaro Amato. I am glad to welcome the son of my dead brother. Come into the house.
Gennaro's son, Riccardo, had been an officer in the Italian army. He wasn't inclined to be as polite as his father. When Eddie told him that he was a bombardier, Riccardo said,
Then I must congratulate you, cousin. The bombing of Foggia was very well done. It's only by mere chance that you find us alive and well.
Eddie tried to explain that Foggia had been bombed long before we came there. But it didn't help to take the chill out of the atmosphere. Meanwhile, Gennaro had sent for his neighbors to come over and meet his American nephew. Among them were the Sorvinos and their daughter Nina. There seemed to be some understanding between this lovely young girl and Riccardo. Hadn't liked the idea of playing host to American officers.
Nina, come. You must sing for our guests.
Oh, very well. What shall I sing, Riccardo?
Sing Lily Marlene.
Riccardo.
The American lieutenant has no objection?
No, why, of course not. Why should I object, Signorina?
The song, Lily Marlene, it was sung by the Germans in North Africa and by the Italian army also.
Well, everybody's singing it now. I'd like to hear you sing it.
Tutte le sere sotto quel tuonal presso la caserma ti stavo ad aspettar. Anche stasera aspetterò e tutti il mondo scorderò con te
I felt rather sorry for Eddie right then. He'd been so eager to meet his relatives. And the actual welcome was pretty disheartening. There was more to it than the fact that he was an American officer. Eddie discovered that when his uncle took him outside to show him the farm.
Say, Uncle, that girl, Nina, she appears to dislike me.
Well, the Sorvinos had a son. He was killed by the Americans in North Africa.
Oh, I see. Is she in love with Ricardo?
I do not know for sure. Ricardo is with her brother in North Africa. Whether this is love or just remembering her brother, I do not know.
Oh. She's very beautiful.
Yes, she is. Well, Eduardo, what do you think of this farm?
Oh, it's a fine place, Uncle. You should be proud to own it.
I do not own it.
Oh, no, I thought you did.
This land, this house, this farm is not mine. It belongs to you.
What?
Your father left it in my care when he went to America. Now that he's dead, what was his becomes yours.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Nevertheless, the farm is yours.
Oh, but, Uncle, I can't come along and take what you've worked for so many years. I have my own farm in Long Island, a good farm. Well, at any rate, it's not a matter to be decided now.
That was how the legend of Eddie Amato began, with this question of the ownership of the farm. Under the Germans, the people had grown used to ruthless ways of a conquering army. It seemed unbelievable to Gennaro that Eddie should hesitate to accept property which was rightfully his. Yes, Eddie Amato was definitely something new in the way of conquerors. Imagine the Germans making a request like this.
Uncle, if I won't be in the way, I'd like to help with the work here.
You wish to help? To work?
Uh-huh. You see, I'm a farmer, Uncle. I'd be very happy to work here.
Oh, very well. I plan to begin the plowing in a few days.
Good, I'll be here. Uncle, is Nina betrothed to Ricardo?
No.
I don't wish to provoke him. I know that Ricardo doesn't like me.
Well, it is necessary to understand this about Ricardo. From the time of his birth, he has been exposed to certain things. It is not possible for him to discard these things at once.
Of course. Of course, Uncle, I understand.
They were being polite, of course. Ricardo's hatred of Eddie was of the bitterest kind, on a double score. First, because he was an American officer, and then because Eddie might accept the farm and deprive Ricardo of a potential legacy. Cousin Ricardo poured out his bitterness to Nina.
But, Ricardo, the lieutenant has not said that you will accept the farm.
Nina, it cannot be that you believe this. Why, it is nothing but a trick to win the confidence of fools like my father. Later, when this trust has been won, the Americans will probably seize all the farms here.
Ricardo, no.
Remember this, Nina. These are the same ones who killed your brother. You must not trust them.
Yes, you are right, Ricardo. I must not forget this.
As for me, I can no longer stand the sight of these idiots groveling before the American.
Well, what will you do?
There are Italian forces still fighting with the Germans in the north. I go to join them. And when I return, it shall be as a hero.
It was obvious to Eddie that Ricardo had left because of him, and he felt very badly about it. But it did make things easier for him at Gennaro's house, and eventually at the Sorvino's, too. But it was no easy matter to break through the hardness that Nina had thrown around herself.
Nina, I know how you feel about your brother's death, but you must realize that it's a thing of war. You shouldn't hold it against me.
Why do you come into my father's house? What do you do here?
Well, Don't ask me to explain. Why does one wish to see another?
There can be many reasons.
If you don't want to see me, Nina, I won't come here.
Well, it is easy to be confused. You do not think one thing and say another?
No, Nina. Believe me.
Nina's suspicions were echoed in the minds of many of these people. And Eddie began to break them down with understanding and generosity and kindness. He did it in a dozen different ways. And each of these things added new wonder to the legend that was spreading over the countryside.
Look, Eduardo, look. The blade of the plow has broken. There is no place to get it repaired now.
Split right through.
What will I do? If I cannot get a plate repair, I must wait and borrow a plow from the others. Then we'll be too late for the planting.
Yes. I think I can get this fixed, Uncle. There's a welding shop at the airfield.
Will they do this? Your army? Our conquerors?
Now, here's the deal, fellas. I'd like as many of you as are willing to come out to the farm and lend a hand. The exercise will be good for you, no kidding. And at the same time, you'll be doing my uncle a favor he'll never forget.
Okay,
I'm in trouble, Eduardo. Bad trouble.
Oh, what is it, Cesaro?
There's an evil blight on my vines. It eats through my leaves like a hungry thing. Some of the others say I should burn it down in my vineyard.
Burn it down? No, that's ridiculous. Perhaps I can get something for you to cure the vines. Let's see, there may be something I can get from the Army. If not, I could cable to the Secretary of Agriculture in Washington.
The Secretary of Agriculture?
Mm-hmm.
You have a personal relationship with him?
I have heard how you fixed Pichillo's vines. It was very good of you, Eduardo.
Oh, it was nothing, Nina. It was fortunate I was able to get the chemical. Did you know that my cousin Ricardo has come back?
Yes, I know. He could not get through to the German lines.
Do you care that he's back?
I do not think Ricardo and I were such good friends as we thought. That is what you want to know, is it not?
Eduardo, these men wish to ask a question of your government. I told them you would answer it.
Well, I will answer it if I can, Cesaro. What is it?
It is the question of the crops. In previous years, the proceeds of our labor on the land were denied to us. We were told by the Germans that our crops were needed to feed their army. Now there is a new army here. The Americans. Your army. We would like to know this. What is the attitude of the American army on this subject?
I don't think any of you need have any fear on that subject. The Army of the United States provides its own food.
Is this then a promise?
Yes, Cesaro. It's a promise.
Can you visualize the wonder in the eyes of these peasants? An officer of a conquering army came among them, refused to take advantage of them, and went out of his way to help them at every turn. And if there was any single thing that clinched their admiration for Eddie, it was the shortwave broadcast. The whole thing came up in the course of a conversation with Nina's father. He was questioning Eddie about the condition of Italians in America.
Is not the government of the United States hateful, violent toward the Italians in America?
No, Signor Savino. Look, I'm of Italian blood, and I'm an officer in the American Army. Why, the mayor of New York City is of Italian descent.
Was not the same mayor thrown into jail and then executed?
What? Where'd you hear that?
It was so announced by the old government here.
Well, of all... Tell me, do all the people here think as you do that the mayor of New York was killed?
Certainly.
Believe me, Signor Savino, it's nothing but a lie. I'll prove it to you.
How can this be proved?
Well, I don't know at this moment. But I'll find a way to prove it. You see, Doc...
Yes, Eddie?
I've told these people a lot of things about America. But if they believe this stuff about the mayor, why, they probably think I'm full of baloney about all the rest.
Well, how about this? Why not let them listen to him?
Listen to him? Are you nuts, Doc? How?
Well, I understand the mayor broadcasts over shortwave every Sunday.
He does?
Uh-huh.
See, that's a terrific idea, Doc. Look, we'll borrow a radio and take it out to Savino's next Sunday. He can pass the word around to all the farmers. They can hear the mayor for themselves.
Well, the news of the coming broadcast spread all right, like a prairie fire. That Sunday night, there must have been at least 500 farmers gathered in Savino's front yard. Up on the porch, Eddie paced back and forth. Well, Kelly and I fiddled with the radio. Eddie was as jittery as a bombardier before a flight.
Doc, suppose just tonight he doesn't speak or the transmission's bad.
This is the voice of
Is that it, Doc? Is that it?
The 25-meter band. The mayor ought to be on in a few seconds. You better say something to the crowd.
Say something.
Sure, you know. Introduce it.
Well, okay, here goes. Attention, everybody. In just a few moments, we'll hear the voice of the mayor of New York City. I don't know what this man will say. The thing I do know is this. He's of Italian blood. He's still mayor of the largest city in America. And he speaks his mind as he pleases. Such as the United States.
Now, Mayor LaGuardia.
This is your friend, LaGuardia speaking. To the courageous people of occupied Italy, I should like to send our greetings once again.
The faces of the peasants were filled with wonder.
Slow up.
As the mayor talked on, heads began to nod gravely. Eyes began to shine.
All railroad tracks.
As the mayor closed his talk, there was a restless stirring in the crowd as they anticipated the finish.
To worry about in other parts of Europe. The liberation of all of Italy is not far away. This is your friend, LaGuardia, who has spoken to you. Courage, forward.
You see, you don't generally think of ideas in the abstract. You identify them with people. And when these farmers thought of democracy in America, they thought of Eddie Amato. Now, maybe that sounds a little pompous, but it was really the way they felt. If they didn't, they would never have sought Eddie's opinion about the marketing of the crops. To them, it was as crucial as life and death.
Eduardo, as you have promised, we are now permitted by the American to sell our crops wherever we please.
Uh-huh.
But when we go to marketplace, we find the dealers are all agree on a certain low price, half what the crops are worth. Well, then we ask ourselves, how are we better off than before? It was thought by these men that perhaps you could help us, as you have in other ways.
I told them you would help us, Eduardo.
Well, to investigate this organization that appears to be keeping the prices down is beyond my abilities. There's probably some agency, some government agency, which could help you. It seems to me that the only way to fight an organization of buyers is with an organization of sellers.
How you mean, Eduardo?
Well, it's this, Uncle. Together, you may not even have to deal with the buyers in the market. Why not sell directly to the retail stores in the towns?
Idea has very good merit.
All right, let's take a vote on the matter then. All those who wish the plan to be investigated, say so.
There was much enthusiastic discussion, and finally Eddie's plan was approved by all. Gennaro and some of the others went beforehand to the stores in the towns and made contracts with the storekeepers. On the morning of the day on which the produce was to be sold, the wagons of the farmers formed a long procession on the road. It was like a holiday with Sunday clothes and flowers and silver harnesses. When they reached the first town, Eddie arose in his wagon and addressed the people.
Listen, everyone, listen. My uncle, Gennaro Amato, has suggested that I take charge of the money we receive from the storekeepers. Then I will divide it among you tomorrow. Is that satisfactory? All right, then. Let's go.
The day was unbelievably successful. And by evening, every last vegetable had been sold at a good price. Eddie and Nina celebrated the day by going to the opera in Bari. Then she and Eddie drove slowly home in the wagon.
Oh, it's been a long day, Nina.
Long and happy, Eduardo. There has never been such a day for any of us.
I'm glad. I was a little worried it might not work out.
No one, Eduardo. No one has ever so concerned himself for them. They will not forget it.
Well, they'll be even happier when I divide this money. Why, I must have several 100,000 lira.
How much is that in your money?
Well, let's see. A lira is now worth a penny.
See?
Oh, there must be, about $3,000. Whoa! Well, here we are. Wait a minute, Nina. I'll help you down. All right. Come on. There we are. Nina, darling.
Eduardo.
Oh, Nina.
Oh, Eduardo. Now you must go and get some rest. Oh, I cannot wait to see their faces when you divide the money.
Eddie said that he left Nina at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was 4 hours later when he came into my quarters and wakened me. His face was white and he was trembling all over.
Doc, something terrible's happened.
What was it, Eddie?
Doc, the dough I was holding for the farmers, it's gone. I lost it or somebody stole it or something.
What?
I've been laying out there on the road since 1 o'clock. Somebody conked me on the head or something fell on me. I don't know, but when I came to, the money was gone. What am I going to do, Doc? What'll I tell those farmers?
I don't know where he did get the guts to face those people the next day. It was brutal. The worst part of it was that none of them said a word. They just accepted it the way they had been accepting treachery for years. Gennaro refused to look at Eddie.
Uncle, look at me. Do you believe that I've stolen the money?
I do not make me answer.
Please, all of you. You must believe me. Look. Look at the back of my head. Signor Savino, look. This is where I was struck. Cesaro, look. You can see the sign of the blow. Look, Uncle. Please. You can't believe that I did this.
The boy was crushed completely. When he wasn't flying, he refused to move outside his tent. He imagined that everyone would point him out as a thief. Of course, the fellows all believed Eddie's story. Or tried to. But they all admitted that he was in a bad spot. A court-martial proceeds on fact, not faith. Kelly frantically laid down a barrage of potential suspects.
Hey, take that no-good cousin of his, for example, Doc. That guy'd give his right arm to turn these people against Eddie. Why don't we sweat it out of him? Why don't we
Kelly,
take him to cleaners?
please, don't you see what that would look like? It's just what their own black shirts would do.
And what about that dame Nina? She was the last
Are you
one.
kidding? She's in love with Eddie.
How do you know she is? Because she says so? You remember how she hated all of us when we first came here? How do you know she hasn't just been playing up to Eddie just to frame him like this?
Kelly, I know you want to help him, but this...
All right, then what about the old man himself? His uncle? That whole business about the farm belonging to Eddie. Wouldn't that be a sweet way to solve the problem?
Kelly was just sounding off. There wasn't a shred of proof in Eddie's defense, and the court-martial was instituted at once. The people were amazed at the very fact of the trial. Here the Americans were trying one of their own officers for robbing the peasants, and then to top it off, they summoned the peasants themselves as witnesses. I was called last as the doctor who had examined Eddie's bruise. I hated to give that testimony, but there was nothing else I could do.
Captain, can you state authoritatively that the blow was delivered by an outside force?
No, I cannot.
Thank you, Captain. Your witness, Major.
Captain, is it possible to so deliver a blow to the head that the victim will be rendered unconscious and yet not break the skin of the scalp?
Objection, Your Honor. Incompetent, irrelevant, and immaterial.
What is the line of argument the defense is attempting here?
If the court please, I will try to show that the injury sustained by the defendant could have been delivered by an assailant. After that, I hope to show that this type of attack is known to have been a part of the training of the black shirts.
Go on, Major.
Well, there are many black shirts in the neighborhood, aren't there? Former black shirts?
Yes, it was a weak defense. We knew it. Everyone knew it. It was just about then that a man rose in the courtroom. went over to Gennaro and whispered in his ear. It was Dino, a little Italian who worked in the officers' quarters at the field. Gennaro got up suddenly, and both of them left. Eddie was asked if he wished to make a final statement. He came slowly toward the front of the courtroom and stood there for a moment.
I don't know what more I can say. In spite of what's happened, I'd like all these people to know that I don't hold anything against them. I hope they got to understand American things better because of me. I ought to say this, maybe. Don't you see, I wouldn't let these people down like that. That's all, sir.
Your Honor! Your Honor!
Now, what on earth is this? Gennaro Amato. Who is this man with you?
Your Honor, he's a former black shirt. It is my son, Ricardo Amato.
Gennaro took the stand. With tears of shame in his eyes, the old man told how Dino had been invited by Ricardo to join him in another attempt to reach the Germans in the north. Ricardo had offered him huge sums of money for the care of his family, but Dino had no desire to accept the invitation.
Your Honor, I was anxious to know the source of this money. My wife, she knew where Ricardo was hiding. Now, I have brought this son of mine here. He will tell you the truth you seek. He will tell you it was he who stole the money, not my American nephew.
Well, that's the story of how American democracy came to one little section of Italy. Democracy in the shape of a decent, honest kid from a truck farm on Long Island. I'd like to be able to give you a rousing end to the story, to tell you that Eddie and Nina were married and lived happily ever after. But that's not the end. Eddie is now in the Pacific, continuing to fight a war. And Nina is waiting for him in Italy. Please God, the two will meet again. In any case, Eddie Amato will never be forgotten in one corner of Italy. He'll live, if only as a legend, as eternal proof that democracy is something more than a political concept. As proof that this overused word is nothing more or less than a man's decency to his fellow men.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you a dramatization of Elliot Arnold's novel about democracy in war-torn Italy entitled Tomorrow We'll Sing. The radio play was written by Edward Jurist. Eddie Amato was played by Larry Haynes, Nina by Bryna Rayburn, Gennaro by Lou Sorin, and Doc by Joseph Curtin. Mayor LaGuardia was impersonated. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, production Garnet Garrison. Next week, Words at War will present the radio dramatization of Banshee Harvest by James Phelan. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
NBC will interrupt all its programs to bring you the latest news.
And now, Words at War.
So that's what has brought you, Tom O'Meara. To the gallows. To the end of the hangman's rope. Was it worth it, Tom? Did you prove anything? I wonder if you could speak now. What would you say?
Sure, it is indecent for a corpse to speak, especially when it's hanging by the neck from a hangman's rope. I'd say, yes, we proved something. I'd say it was worth it. Oh, I know there was a big war going on in the world. I know that our fight was regarded merely as a minor disturbance in the mountain country of Ireland. But, man, make no mistake about it. The principles were the same. Our fight was the fight of the little people everywhere. And those of us that died in it, we died for freedom too. And maybe in our story, there's a lesson for the common man everywhere.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another program in the widely discussed series Words at War, dramatizing the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. Tonight, Jim Phelan's story of neutral Ireland during these war years, Banshee Harvest. Mr. Phelan's story is pure fiction. He makes no bones about that. But as he indicates in a foreword to his book, it is based on his own bitter experiences.
After years of residence in England, I was coming back to the Ireland of my childhood, to the mountains of Killavola. I was coming back as an officer of the Irish police, as Captain Arthur Curtin, product of Eton and Oxford. Coming to visit my uncle, Barry Muswell, a cattle rancher whom I hadn't seen for years. This was to be a holiday before taking up my official duties in Dublin. It was just as simple as that, I thought. I was just coming back for a visit. Actually, in this world at war, I was stepping back into another century. I trudged up the mountain trail and came to the crossroads. There was some kind of a meeting in progress. About 24 men were grouped around a speaker. Tall man with hair prematurely white. They paid no attention to me, so I stopped to listen.
How long will you be going from morning till night, slaving and working your fingers to the bone? And for what, may I ask? I'll tell you. To keep the landlords in style while ye starve and your children go around in rags and tatters. Some of you with your scraps of land and the rest working as hired hands on the ranches. When will you be men and demand to be treated as men, not cattle? When will you take what belongs to you?
True for you, Tom.
You remember 22.
Aye, Tom O'Meara. And 3 years in jail, too.
Aye, Donnelly. Jail for you and the gallows for others. Not one man of you here but had a father or an uncle or a brother in it.
I did.
So, let me go back. The landlords were grinding us into dust. So what did we do? We fought to throw out the British who were keeping the landlords in power. And then, with the IRA and the Free State, after fighting a civil war, what do we find? We've the same masters being supported and sustained in power by the revolutionary government we ourselves put in. Am I right or wrong?
Right,
And today, we're as bad off as ever. We who fought a revolution to win freedom. And what are we going to do about it? They say there's a war being fought for freedom. Where's our freedom? Let me ask you that. Let me ask...
Oh, you're at it again, Tom O'Meara. Inciting the people, is it? Well, there'll be no more of that, or I won't fire the next shot in the air.
I believe that. Being a landlord yourself, you're not for free speech.
I don't be believing in insurrection, and the like of you stirring up my workmen. All right, scatter now. Scatter, you gang of criminals. Or by the name of the law, I'll...
There you are, men. If you need the proof of what we've been saying, there it is. There you see.
I've warned you, Tom O'Meara. Now I'll show you. Maybe this...
Put down that gun, you... Are you mad? You might have killed that man.
It wouldn't be the first.
And what if I did kill him? And who, may I ask, are you to come interfering?
Put down that gun. I must ask you to accompany me to the nearest village.
Oh, to the nearest village, is it? Oh, take my advice, young fella, and clear out of here. And as for you rats,
Don't let me be hearing any more of this agitating, or by heaven above, I'll...
that gun. Now, you come with me.
What the devil do you mean?
I happen to be a police officer.
Police officer? Oh, well, man, why didn't you say so? Well, these is the rats that you've been looking for right here.
I don't know anything about that. I'm a police officer, and I've witnessed an attempt at shooting which you'll have to explain. My name is Curtin, Captain Arthur Curtin, and I must ask you to...
Curtin? Captain Arthur Curtin, is it?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one. You're my sister Marion's kid.
What?
So they've made an Englisher out of you, huh?
You're Barry Muswell, my uncle?
And who else? Lad, I sent a car to meet your train.
I took an earlier train. But look here, Uncle, this thing needs explaining. You shot at that man there in the middle of a peaceful meeting of village people discussing their own affairs.
Lad, will you not be talking nonsense? These is a gang of robbers wanting to steal my estate the same as they did in 22. Village people, huh? So that's what Eton and Oxford has done for you. Not to know these is my own workmen. Enough now. Come along home, Arthur, me lad.
Well, I suppose I... Well, good day, gentlemen.
Come along. Gentlemen, is it? You've a lot to learn, Arthur.
With my uncle, Barry Muswell, I walked towards the great manor house in the distance, feeling that we had just turned our backs on the makings of another revolution.
Shake hands with me nephew, Sir Morris. Arthur, this is Sir Morris Fernwort. He has the big place across the way.
How do you do, Sir Morris?
Welcome, Captain Curtin.
You'll have a drop more, Arthur, huh? I don't have to ask Sir Morris.
Thank you, Uncle.
There. There you are. Well, sit down. Well, 'tis not a bad old world, and Ireland's not a bad old country after all, huh?
Really? Well, from the way you ranted and raved at those men this afternoon, I had the impression Ireland was entirely populated by robbers and jailbirds.
It's talking about the country I am. Not them kind of rats you saw at the crossroads.
But they're the people, aren't they, Uncle? When you say France, you mean the French people, don't you? And when you say Ireland, you...
I mean the decent people.
Such as yourself, no doubt.
Have your joke, Arthur. But maybe Sir Morris will tell you what kind of rats Tom O'Meara and his gang are. Maury's got 5,000 acres, and the same murdering gang divided up his place during the trouble of 22.
What about it, Sir Morris?
Oh, it's quite true, Captain Curtin. Matter of fact, your uncle's account of things is rather an understatement.
What did I tell you, Arthur?
They did take my place in 22, and your uncle's and several others, too. Lock, stock, and barrel.
But not without some reason, surely. It just doesn't happen. No one can make me believe that peaceful working men can suddenly turn into...
robbers and murderers. That's what they are.
No, Sir Morris, I can't believe
Captain Curtin, do you know anything about Irish history?
Naturally. But perhaps not recent Irish history.
Well, if the peasants around here ever got to trust you, and I don't think they ever would, they'd tell you a few things. The landowners at one time were sustained by the British. Then in 1920, the Irish people got rid of the British and set up a free state. In 1922, a civil war broke between the Free Staters and the Irish Republican Army. The outcome was that the Free State gave us the backing of the law, just as the British had done. The IRA went underground, and it's there to this day.
That's the gospel truth. Come, drink up.
And so we have today the support of the very government the people themselves put in.
And so the agrarian problem remains what it always was, is that it?
The problem remains this. Two people can't own the same piece of land. That's elementary mathematics. That's your agrarian problem.
Yes, but look here. Is it right that one small lot of people own all the land and the great mass of the people...
They're robbers and murder and cutthroats, every one of them. Now, let's have a drink. Talk about some more pleasant things.
I listened to them in amazement. There was a war going on in the world, a war about freedom and slavery. But to hear Sir Morris, my uncle, talk, you couldn't believe that this was the day of Hitler. I was eager to know more about these peasants my uncle called robbers and murderers. But as I walked along the mountain roads and through the village, the men avoided me. Old women crossed themselves, and the children looked at me with terror in their eyes. You see, I was a police officer. Then, on the road one day, I met her.
You're Curtin, aren't you?
Yes. And you?
Constance Carberry.
Oh, I'm very happy to meet you. I think I've heard my uncle mention your father.
Barry Muswell had little good to say about Muller Carberry.
How did you know?
They hate each other.
But your father's a landowner. I thought the landowners hated only the peasants.
You don't know my father. Yes, he's a landowner. But his sympathies are with the peasants. He pays them a living wage.
What are your sympathies, Miss Cranberry?
Not with Barry Muswell and his kind.
I don't believe mine are either.
No?
No.
Then why have you come here? Why do you become a police officer and let yourself be used by such as Muswell and Sir Morris and Prendergast and the rest of the landowners? Why don't you go back to England? Why don't you clear out?
Well, right now I happen to be on a holiday. But when I start to work, I don't think it means that I'm against the peasants. Perhaps if I do an honest job, I can help them.
How little you know.
I suppose. But perhaps while I'm here, I can learn something about the peasants and their problems.
You never could.
Well, I'm going to try.
They won't talk to you. You know, I almost believe you're sincere.
I assure you I am.
You really want to find out about the peasants?
I do indeed.
All right. They trust me, and maybe I can persuade them to trust you. Come on. We'll start right now. You can talk to him, Camomira. I'll vouch for him.
All right, then, Captain. Here's what it is, and it's simple. If he's careful how much food he puts in his mouth, a peasant and his family, from the 4-year-old to the grandmother, working from dawn till dark, can produce enough to live 10 months of the year.
But there are 12 months in a year.
Sure. There's 12 months in the year. But it will be your duty as a police officer supporting the landlords to prove that there's only 10 months in a year.
So my daughter has set her cap for a policeman, eh?
Oh, hush, Dad, and be serious.
Very well. Carlton?
Yes?
As you say, I'm a landowner. But here's the difference. I grow food and hire men and women and pay them. The others raise cattle. You don't need many men for that. Large profits and no risk. Just beef for countries at war, they say. That's ranching. And peasants rotting in hunger and slavery and craving a bit of ground to grow food. And with the guards of the ranches roaming around with their rifles to see that they don't get it.
All right, Arthur. Now, if you want to see what life is really like for the peasants, I'll show you. We're going to a wedding party.
A wedding party? Now, what can I learn at a wedding party?
Come along. You'll find out.
Bring that porter up here, lad. Dominic, where's your drink, man? Sure you don't look like a bridegroom at all.
Here you are, Captain.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'd like to drink a toast to the bride. Where is she?
Oh, she was here a minute ago. I think she's out feeding the pigs now. Oh, she'll be back in a minute.
Out feeding the pigs on our wedding night?
And who would be feeding them?
Are you surprised, Arthur?
Yes, Constance, I certainly am.
Let me explain. After the ceremony, the bride came home and laid aside her good dress and put on her work clothes. Then she started doing all the chores, feeding the pigs and chickens and washing and...
Good heavens, can't she stop working for her own wedding party? Doesn't she have any honeymoon?
That is her honeymoon. Tomorrow morning she'll be up at 4 to work for the rest of her life. Yet she's worked at harder work than this for 18 years, so she could buy Dominic and the pigs.
What do you mean, buy?
Just that. Peasants don't marry for love. They just can't. They marry money just as London society does, only the sums are smaller. A man can't slave all his life to get a plow, 2 pigs, and 4 calves just to go and squander all that wealth on some woman. So a girl has to buy a man. She gets the money by labor in the fields as a house servant. Then when she finds a man who'll accept the son she's got, she marries. Oh, Arthur, there she is.
Who?
There's Bridget, the bride.
Hello there, Matt.
What's she doing now?
Why, she's going to have a cup of tea while she mends that shirt.
She's not exactly young, is she?
Of course she isn't young. She's in her 30s. Her husband is over 40. Peasants marry late. They can't afford to get married young. But sheer hard labor keeps them from worrying too much about it. It's an awful price to pay for Sir Morris's fare to London 3 times a year. And his wife's trip to the Riviera in peacetime.
Oh, now listen, that's just bitterness. People don't have to be peasant farmers, do they? Nobody asks them. Why can't they get jobs?
Jobs? On your uncle's ranch, or Fernwood, or Prendergast? You poor imbecile. That's what the ranchers want them to do. That's why they're slowly murdering them. So they'll chuck their wretched, hopeless little farms and go to work for the ranchers.
But wouldn't it be common sense to get rid of this back-breaking, uneconomic way of making a living? Wouldn't it be better off as hired hands? Why, these people are 18th century. They have no place in the modern world.
Wait. Take another look at Bridget, the bride. She worked for Fernwood. Her wages were 6 quid.
6 quid? Well, for a girl, £6 a month is by no means a bad.
6 quid a year. £6 a year. $25 a year. That was her wage. You see that iron pot over there?
Yes.
To buy that, she had to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months. Just to buy 1 pot.
Good Lord.
Here, Captain Curtin. You've not tasted this pig's cheek.
Thanks, but really, I don't...
Oh, don't be bashful. There's plenty more. Who'll have a taste of the pig?
You'd better eat it, Arthur. It's not as bad as it looks. It's the only meat they can afford.
Bit of the crusher, Arthur.
Not just now, Uncle.
Oh, very well. Arthur, I've been meaning to have a little talk with you.
Yes, Uncle?
I'll be candid with you. I don't like the way you've been running around with this Carberry woman and her peasant friends.
You don't?
No, I don't. Now, Arthur, we're going to be busy here, rounding up the cattle and the like of that, and there'll be no time to be entertaining guests.
Oh.
I think you better go to Dublin tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Uncle, but I don't think I will.
You don't think? Hey, isn't it time that you'd be getting to Dublin? Take up your duties as a police officer?
Not quite.
No? Well, there'll be no place for you here.
Well, I'll stay at the inn in the village.
Well, now, how would that make me look?
I don't know, Uncle, but I'm not going. I think there's going to be some trouble around here, and I'm going to stay and see about it.
There'll be no more trouble.
Then why have you and Fernwood and Prendergast been bringing in these gunmen?
Well, suppose there is trouble. We know how to deal with it.
How are you going to deal with it?
Well, now, since you must know, I'll tell you. Yes, there'll be trouble, brought on by Tom O'Meara and his gang. And when it starts, they'll take to the mountains. But we'll blast them out. We did it before, and we'll do it again.
Ever hear of the IRA?
Ha! So O'Meara's counting on the Irish Republican Army to help them, is he? Well, never fear. The IRA is not going to come out of its hiding for the likes of O'Meara and his gang of Amadans. They won't strike until they have a chance to win. And they know they haven't a chance in this affair.
But what if they should?
They won't, I tell you. Now will you be off to Dublin and not be interfering?
No, Uncle. I'm going to stay. I'm going to see this thing through.
Ah, bah!
The incident came, just as Tom O'Meara said it would. The rancher's guards tried to provoke a fight at the church after Mass, but peasants wouldn't be tricked. They fled to the mountains for the battle they knew was unavoidable. I went with them, with O'Meara and Kieran and Constance Carberry and the rest.
Why do you smile, Arthur?
Was I smiling? Well, Con, I suppose I was thinking how funny it is for me to be up here with you and the others, fighting my own kind of people.
There's nothing funny about it. It may cost you your life.
I know, but it all seems so unreal, like something out of a comic opera. As far as I can see, it's not a military operation at all. Just run up to the mountain. What's to prevent the police and the ranch owners from just ignoring us? We can't do them any harm up here.
Oh, yes, we can. The ranchers have no laborers today. They're up here, armed, instead of on the ranches or in jail. That's a land war.
Sounds more like a strike.
It is a strike in a way. It's, Oh, hello, Tom.
Oh, hello, Tom.
Hello, Constance. Captain Curtin.
How are things going, Tom?
All right so far. But what happens in the end depends on the IRA.
You've sent a messenger, Tom?
I have that. If he gets to them, I know they'll help us.
Aye. Motorcycles and lorries on the road.
It's the landowners. They're wasting no time. To your postmen. You want to be in on this, Captain?
I'm in on everything from now on. Take cover, Constance.
Yes, Arthur, I will.
I was next to Tom O'Meara as we waited for the lollies to come within range. Tom, how did they find us so quickly?
They've a guide, that's certain.
A guide? You don't mean one of your own people?
Aye. Hold your fire now, men, until they're in range.
I see them. It's Tim Whaley guiding them. Dominic, lad, it's your own father-in-law.
Tim Whaley. He did the same thing in 22. Wait now, men. Wait. Now, men, let them have it.
They got Dominic's father-in-law, turned back the police. But next day, the guide was a woman. As we waited for him to come within range, everyone quiet but tense. I looked at the man next to me. It was Dominic, the bridegroom of not many evenings before. Then I looked again and recognized the woman who was guiding the police. Dominic, don't shoot. Don't you see who she is?
I see who she is.
Dominic, that was...
I've killed my own bride. The traitor that she was, like her father before.
Good Lord.
Let them have that grenade now.
Right shot, Tom.
Well, Arthur, you're in it now. In it up to your neck. How does it feel to be an outlaw?
Well, as Tom here would say, Constance, it's just a job of work.
And so it is.
Frankly, Tom, this whole thing strikes me as just silly down at bottom. Doing stunts like today's doesn't really force the government to your views, or does it?
It's not the government. We have no real quarrel with Dev's government. They're trying to do right by the peasants, but it takes a long time, and most of the people is crooked.
You mean misrepresentation? Huh. Perhaps I have more knowledge of that side than you.
Begab, I wish you had, Skipper. You don't know the dirt of your own kind of people yet. They're cheating on us, and on De Valera, and on the English that thinks they're their friend.
But, Tom, all this is just lunacy. I'm in it because I think you're right. But it's still lunacy. Why, you told me yourself that you people have been doing this for generations. Well, this is just one more generation. You haven't got a dog's chance.
Oh, so you've been listening to that baby-murdering uncle of yours after all?
No, Miss Constance. Captain Curtin is here with us, and that's enough for me.
Not for me, Tom. Listen, Curtin. This isn't just one more generation. We'll win this time.
Con, I hope you will. But look, I'm not here just because I'm in love with you.
Oh, darling.
I'm here because I believe in Tom O'Meara and you and all the others. I'm here because I'm not the kind of police officer who helps to break the law, even if the law breaks him.
Oh, I know. I know, darling. I'm sorry.
Tom O'Meara, they're here.
At last they came, what Tom O'Meara had been praying for.
They're here at last, 200 of them from the IRA.
Are you sure, Bat?
They got the password we sent them by the messenger.
Oh,
Tom.
man alive.
Tom, we've got nothing to worry about now. They're fine, big, strapping men. Come on, Tom, the leader is waiting to meet you.
They were big men, apparently from the west of Ireland, big and dangerous looking. They carried themselves with a military bearing and kept their guns by their sides at all
It's a fine
times.
body of men you have there, sir. Fine discipline. Will you have a drop of porter?
We never drink on a mission like this.
I wish I could say the same for my lads. Look at them, drinking their fill. Oh, but I suppose we've nothing to worry about now.
No, not now, O'Meara.
It's time to be turning in.
I'll sit up a while, O'Meara.
All right. Good night, sir. Good night.
I wondered about these IRA men. Their military bearing, their discipline. It was most unusual for a band of guerrilla fighters. I was wondering when I fell off to sleep. What? What's this? You take off these handcuffs. What's the meaning of this?
Take him outside with the others.
Yes, come on.
I should have known. At least I should have known that these men were professionals.
Get over there, O'Meara.
All right. But one question, please. Am I to understand that you're not from the IRA?
We're the police. We captured your messenger.
Oh, what a fool I've been.
Tom, it's not your fault.
Leave me alone, Skipper. Unless you can get a gun and plug me. A peasant leader. That's what I was. And to be fooled like this by the police, just when we had them licked. Them and their government friends, and their Nazi friends in Germany. Now I'm after letting them down.
Letting whom down?
Friends in England. We told them. The Nazis had been spending money like water, planning a murderous big submarine campaign from Ireland. They'd have got it, too. Bound for us.
I don't understand. What is it, Constance?
The one thing the ranchers can't stand is publicity, Arthur.
Uh-huh.
They've got by for generations by blaming everything on the peasants. And they're in with the Nazis. And we'd have been blamed for anything that happened. Our plan was to spread the land war all over the south of Ireland. Neither Dublin nor London could have been fooled then. They'd have had to show their hand at last.
But for me being a trusting fool, you were right, Captain Curtin. It's just one more generation now.
Tom, I hope this time it's something more than that. But I was wrong. The leaders were shot or hanged. Constance Carberry of the black hair, the flashing eyes among them. The rest went back to work and resumed their miserable little lives as slaves of the ranchers. Me, my chance to escape came. How did I get away? You forget I was the nephew of Barry Muswell, a man who stood for everything I had come to hate. You, Tom O'Meara, swinging at the end of the hangman's rope. What would you say now? Was it worth it? Did you prove anything?
Tis indecent, perhaps, for a corpse to be speaking. But yet, maybe we did prove something. To be sure, our fight took place in an obscure little corner of Ireland. And the stakes were small, as you would measure them on the outside. And sure, there was a bigger war going on in the world. But I'm wondering if the issues were just the same. The common man struggling for the right to earn a decent living, to raise his children as he saw best. to send him to school and to hold up his head as a free man. Maybe we didn't prove anything, except that it was worth fighting for, even though we lost. And to all the people like us throughout the world, let me say, keep up the fight, for someday you're going to win.
Tonight on Words at War, we've presented a dramatization of the novel Banshee Harvest by Jim Phelan, a story of pure fiction, but based on the author's own bitter experience. The radio adaptation was written by Gerald Holland. The cast included Mary Jane Higby, John Moore, John Connery, John McBride, Joe Latham, Alfred Shirley, Martin Begley, Spencer Bentley, and John McQuaid. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, and the entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, Words at War will present the radio dramatization of that important and controversial book, Full Employment in a Free Society, by William H. Beveridge. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. John Patrick Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company. Words at War.
Hurrah, hurrah, when Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, dum diddy dum dum dum. Hey, easy, Bessie. Just take it easy. We're almost there, I think. Hey, mister.
Yeah?
Hey, Mac. Can you give me some information?
Well, that depends on the kind of information you want.
Well, can you tell me if I'm on the right road? I'm going to a place called the Post-War World.
You're on the right road. Straight ahead. You can't miss it.
Yeah, but there's a fork up ahead. Which road do I take?
That depends on you.
You mean it makes no difference?
It makes a lot of difference.
Oh, I don't get it. Look, mister, my name is Smith. Joseph Smith. Joe for short.
Yeah.
I've been traveling for a long time, ever since they discharged me from the Army. I've been told that once I get to this post-war world place, my troubles will be over. I'd sure like to get there before it gets dark. I'm almost out of gas, and Bessie here's beginning to holler because she's so hot. Bessie's the name for the car. She's kind of old. I'll trade her in as soon as I get to the post-war place.
As I said, Joe, both roads lead to the post-war world, but each leads to a different town in the post-war world. One road is long, the other one's short. One will get you there in a hurry, and the other will take a little time.
Oh, now you got me all mixed up. I just wanted some simple directions.
Well, I've got nothing to do for a while. I'll ride along with you for a way.
Gee, that's swell. Thanks. Yeah, jump in. Nice day, ain't it?
See the road on the left?
Yeah.
That's the short one. That one will get you there in no time at all. A lot of familiar landmarks on the way, so you won't get lost. That road leads to a town called Depression.
Oh. And, how about this other one?
This road on the right is tough. Parts of it haven't been built yet. No familiar landmarks, no signposts. That one goes to a town called Full Employment.
I see. At least I think I do. That means if I want to get to the post-war world, I got to decide between depression and full employment.
And you'll have to decide before you go any further, Joe. You'll have to decide right now.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another of the most significant programs on the air today, Words at War, dramatizing the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. Tonight, William Beveridge's historical blueprint for the post-war world, Full Employment in a Free Society. Dramatized for radio by Ben Kagan, with Ted Jewett as the narrator.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah.
This is the road to depression, Joe. The road we followed after the last war. The road we may follow again. Look at the familiar landmarks on the way. Unemployment, idleness, disease, ignorance, squalor. Look at the bread lines, the broken down shacks, children running barefoot along grimy streets, closed down factories, hungry faces, broken bodies. Do you see them, Joe?
Yeah.
You see this man standing on the curb, his eyes bleary, his body weakened with hunger? Listen to him, Joe. Come closer. Listen to him.
Wanted. No help wanted. No help wanted. That's the answer I've been getting. First I went down to the factory. No work there. Then I went to the local garage. No soap. Then I went to the employment office. And they said nothing today. I've been doing this every day for the past 3 years. Day after day. Day after day. We get relief at home, sure. But it's hardly enough to keep body and soul together. My wife is sick. Kids can't go to school because they haven't got the right clothing. What kind of a life is it anyway? What's the sense of going on? What's it all going to lead to?
Here's a woman in her middle 40s, Joe. Her hair prematurely gray. Body stooped, worry written in her face.
My husband is a good man. And he does a lot for me in the house. But he's a changed man these last 2 years. He never complains, but I wish he would. It makes me unhappy to find him becoming quieter and quieter when I know what he must be feeling. We quarrel far more now than before. We would both rather be dead than go on like this.
Here's a youngster, a child of 10. Her ragged clothes are much too big for her gaunt, starved little body. Her eyes stare at you intently as she talks in broken sentences.
They had a play in school today, but I couldn't go. I didn't have a coat. It was cold out. My mama cried all day, and I cried, too. It was going to be such a lovely play, and I never saw one. Papa doesn't come home much anymore. One day he came home and brought milk. It was good. I liked it. But that was a long time ago. I wanted so much to go to the play today. I wanted it more than anything. I cried when I couldn't go. But Mama said maybe next year I would get a coat from the relief. I wonder.
I had my own business and lost that. Got a job in a wholesale house, and they laid us off. Been walking the streets ever since. To tell you the truth, I don't look for work anymore. What's the use? Got about as much chance of picking up a job nowadays as winning the Irish sweepstakes.
I've come to the stage where I think I'll never find employment.
What kind of a life is it anyway? It's a dismal future. There's nothing to look forward to.
It's like a living death.
The familiar landmarks on the way, the cycle that always begins with the sound of the factory whistle, and the announcement.
Your attention, please. Because of curtailed production, 120 men will be laid off today. Those who are will find their pink slips in their pay envelopes.
The cycle that always ends with a scramble for non-existent jobs. A mad scramble resulting in another ugly growth.
It's the Jews who control all the jobs.
Yes, get the foreigners out. Americans should have first preference.
Sure, the high Negroes, they won't let a white man work. I say get the women out of the jobs and put the men in.
Hatred. Hatred of foreigners, hatred of Jews, hatred of Negroes, of all minorities. Enmity between sexes. Hatred which stems from fear of insecurity. Each man appearing as the enemy of his fellows.
You've seen enough, Joe.
Huh?
Or do you want to go on? Do you want to see the wasted youth, wasted in idleness and numbing indifference? The older men, the first to be thrown by the wayside? Families losing their homes, farmers losing their farms, men and women losing their usefulness?
Okay, I'm convinced. I never said I liked unemployment. And I can see that I won't like another depression. But there's one thing that's still bothering me. One thing you haven't explained. What causes all this? Who's to blame? If nobody likes unemployment, why do we have it?
A fair question, Joe. Listen.
The volume of unemployment at any time in any community depends upon three factors. One, the quantity of demand for the products of industry. Two, the direction of the demand. Three, how industry responds to the demand. There will be unemployment if effective demand is not sufficient to use the whole labor force in the community. There will be unemployment if demand is misdirected. There will be unemployment if industry carries excessive reserves of labor, or if there are obstacles which prevent labor from following changes in demand.
That's William Beveridge's analysis of unemployment. Now let's reduce the theory to everyday terms. First, the volume of unemployment depends upon the quantity of effective demand for the products of industry.
That's where I come in. I'm a product of industry, any kind of a product. Now, let's say I'm an automobile. I'm being displayed in the showroom window, and thousands of people pass by and admire me. And all day long, I keep hearing the same comments. Nice-looking car.
Yeah. I sure could use a car like that.
But very few of these people come in to buy me, either because they don't have any money or because they want to keep it in the bank. No sale. Well, this keeps up for a week, a month, a year. And then one day, the sad news comes from the factory.
Too many cars on the market. Not enough demand for them. We'll have to cut production.
Because of reduced production, we are laying off 200 men. All those laid off will find their pink slips in their envelopes.
No effective demand, no full employment.
Second, the volume of unemployment depends on the direction of the demand.
That's me. I am another product of industry. I vary with the times and circumstances at hand. At the moment, I happen to be coal. I'm in great demand. But comes the end of the war, and the trend suddenly changes.
From now on, we'll use oil for heating as well as power.
Electricity for us.
We're installing diesel motors.
What happens to me? As the demand begins to decrease, production begins to decline. And one day, the sad news comes from the mines.
Beginning next Monday, 5,000 men are going to be laid off. All those affected will find their pink slips in their pay envelopes.
No planned, directed demand, no full employment.
Third, the volume of unemployment depends on how industry responds to the demand.
I'm labor. In some industries and sections of the country, there aren't enough of us to keep production going. In others, you'll find excessive reserves being hoarded. Men standing by to meet local changes and situations. There is no organized plan by industry to move us from the place of oversupply to the place of undersupply. Result?
Factory 1 in Eastern Region curtailing production because of lack of labor supply.
Factory 2 in Western Region laying off 500 men.
You see? No organized response of industry to demand, no full employment.
And when all three factors, effective demand, direction of demand, and industry response to demand, when all these three break down, you have mass unemployment. That's it, Joe. That's the road to depression. The road we traveled after the last war. The road we may take again unless a plan is found to stop the cycle. Unless a solution is found to make the world go forward instead of backward. Unless a policy is formulated that'll give every man a right to work, a living wage, and security for the future.
I see what you mean. It sort of looks hopeless, though, doesn't it?
There is a solution, Joe. A policy drawn up primarily for England in the post-war world, but one that might be applied anywhere. This policy is called full employment in a free society. The first concrete strategy for attacking unemployment as the root cause of today's and tomorrow's social convulsions.
Is that the other road you talked about? The one that hasn't been built yet? The one without the familiar landmarks on the way?
That's the one, Joe.
What are we waiting for? Let's go!
Here is the road to full employment. William Beveridge's blueprint for the post-war world. A blueprint for the elimination of idleness, the abolition of want, squalor, and ignorance, the prevention and treatment of disease. Step 1.
The labor market in the past has invariably been a buyer's market, with more unemployed men than unfilled jobs.
No help wanted today.
To accomplish full employment, we must make the labor market a seller's market.
Wanted. Machinists, lathe operators, tool makers, setup men, helpers.
In other words, Joe, not more men than jobs, but more jobs than men.
As unemployment has three distinct sources, action against unemployment must be taken on three lines. 1, maintaining at all times adequate outlay, which will ensure effective demand for the products of industry, a demand high enough to keep the whole manpower of the country employed.
This to be accomplished by either shorter hours or an increasing purchasing power, or both.
2, controlling the location of industry.
Take a city like Detroit, for instance, or Chicago, or New York, or Baltimore. They're overcrowded, congested, already have terrific concentrations of industry. So instead of putting any more factories in those cities, you build them in the South or the Midwest, where there's plenty of room to expand.
3, securing the organized mobility of labor.
Meaning that if and when change is necessary, men and women shall be willing to change their occupations and their places of work rather than do nothing.
The reason for this is that except in times of war, the private enterprise system has failed to provide enough jobs for all people willing and able to work.
You've already seen the road to depression.
The government must therefore assume direct responsibility for the citizens' economic welfare. This to be accomplished by setting up a planned economy, an economy directed by the government, which will coordinate manpower, industry, money, and materials to work as effectively in peace as they now work in war.
Well, Joe, does it all begin to make sense to you?
Yes and no. I think I see what this guy Beveridge is driving at. Instead of just letting things drift along by themselves and hope that everything turns out all right, he's saying that there ought to be a plan, a planned economy, he said, with the government in control. Oh, okay, that sounds reasonable. But what I'd like to know is, how is that going to enable the government to make more jobs? What's the magic word that'll solve all our troubles?
The magic word, Joe, is outlay.
Outlay? Well, never heard of it. What's that?
Outlay means spending for consumption. What people spend for consumption gives employment. The more spending for consumption, the more employment.
Wanted. Machinists, helpers, tool grinders, lathe operators.
The less spending for consumption, the less employment.
No jobs open today.
Therefore, spending for consumption must be kept at a steady, high level. And only the government has the power and the means to do that. It is the function of the government to protect its citizens against unemployment in time of peace, just as it is the function of the government to defend its citizens from attacks of the enemy in time of war. The choice is between chaos and order, between free investment and rigorous governmental control.
This is the long-term program of planned outlay. A program to abolish, eliminate, and prevent the four giant evils of our society. Want, disease, ignorance, and squalor. To abolish the first evil, want.
Until you get a job, Mr. Jones, you'll receive a weekly check from the government, which will enable you to live decently and pay for your rent, clothing, and incidentals.
A program of Social Security with benefits provided for the citizens from birth to death. To prevent and treat the second social evil, disease.
Now, there's nothing to worry about, Mrs. Romano. Dr. Wilson is one of the best surgeons in the country, and you'll have the best possible care in the hospital.
A national health
everything's going
service,
to be all right
plus
in
good
the
food and healthy homes. To eliminate the third social evil, ignorance.
All right, children. Turn your page to today's lesson.
A system
Page
of education for adults as well as children. A democratic system of education for all races, creeds, and nationalities. To abolish the fourth social evil, squalor.
Okay, gang, we'll start on this block next. Tear it down from corner to corner.
Slum clearance. Fire traps to be replaced by adequate, healthy housing projects. Healthy homes for raising the standard of life and happiness. To eliminate the fifth evil, set apart in a category of its own. Inflation.
The ceiling price of milk is 14 cents. Butter, 37 cents. Eggs, 42 cents.
Price control to be continued after the war. To protect those whose incomes are fixed. To ensure and safeguard a steady, prosperous economy. That's the policy of full employment. It's not proposed here as a solution of all social problems, as a settlement of all issues of social justice, but it's a step in the right direction, a step which must be taken if men desire progress in the post-war world, if men would eliminate once and for all the giant evils which have plagued civilization for the last 1,000 years. But all progressive measures have their opponents as well as proponents. Undoubtedly, there'll be objections to this plan, for one reason or another, for one motive or another, for one purpose or another. If there are, let's hear them now.
I have an objection. I demand to be heard.
All right, speak up. Rise and address your complaint to the people in the audience.
All I have to say is that this full employment is all nonsense. Dangerous propaganda. Socialistic drivel. I say that full employment, combined with unemployment insurance and all the other coddling devices, will remove the incentive of effort from labor. Effort which depends on fear of starvation. Now, what have you to say about that, sir?
There is an answer to your question, sir. Listen.
For civilized human beings, ambition and desire for service are adequate incentives. It may be that cattle must be driven by fear. Men can and should be led by hope.
How about government interference? By letting the government take control, you'll increase bureaucracy tenfold.
If you look at the failures of the past, you will realize why only the government can make this plan work. True, a full employment policy involves more public control over a limited class of business enterprises. At the same time, it involves less control over the private lives of the mass of the people.
How about labor? By organizing the labor market, you treat labor as a commodity to be shifted back and forth at will.
On the contrary, the report treats them as an end and not as a means. It stresses only one point. Labor should always be a seller's market and not a buyer's market.
Don't tell us, Mr. Beveridge, that your policy doesn't subordinate the individual to the state. The government will be running our lives from the time we're born to the time we die.
The criticism of the gentleman directly reverses the truth. If the state is regarded as more important than the individual, it may be reasonable to sacrifice him in mass unemployment, as he is sacrificed in war by the dictators. But if the state is regarded as existing for the individual, then it must accept responsibility for the welfare of its citizens, for all its citizens, and not for a privileged class.
You've left something out, sir. The problems of industrial management. If a policy of full employment is adopted, industrial discipline will be completely destroyed. We'll be forced to keep a man on the job whether he's useful or not. Now, supposing a man is lazy, inefficient, and shiftless, does industry have to support him for the rest of his life? Does the government have to support him for the rest of his life? And aren't you suggesting another WPA? Now, I'm giving you a straight question, and I want a straight answer.
And you shall get it. Full employment does not mean that everyone has security in his job. Full employment means only that if a man loses his job, he has a chance of finding another. It is the fear of unemployment that we propose to eradicate. Fear of unemployment, which in the past has gnawed at the hearts of men, destroyed their will, their health, their usefulness to society. We have cured unemployment for the sake of waging war. Now we must cure it without war. We have cured unemployment through the hate of Hitler. Now we must do it through the hate of our giant social evils. We have cured unemployment through one common objective, defeat of the enemy. Now we must cure it through another common objective, social consciousness. The full employment policy is a policy of common action. It is a policy of spending and doing. It is worth fighting for and winning.
Well, this is as far as I go, Joe Smith. From here on, you're on your own.
Okay.
Think you can find your way?
Yeah, I can find it all right. And thanks for your trouble.
Don't mention it.
Well, so long. See you in the post-war world.
So long. You'll remember now that you're starting on an experiment. The road ahead is going to be plenty rough and rocky.
Sure, but it's worth trying, ain't it?
Yes, Joe, it's worth trying. So long.
When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum-dee-dum.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you a dramatization of William Beveridge's book, Full Employment in a Free Society. The radio dramatization was written by Ben Kagan. Ted Jewett was the narrator. Jack Arthur was Joe Smith, and Harold Young was heard as William Beveridge. Others in the cast were Abby Lewis, Edith Tackner, Martin Wolfson, Jason Johnson, Lon Clark, Joseph Boland, and Humphrey Davis. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, and the entire production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, Words at War departs somewhat from the usual and presents Mr. Glencannon Ignores the War. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. Every day, we're bringing the war closer to the island of Japan. And consequently, every day, our supply line gets longer and longer. Everyone knows that our supply line is just as strong as its weakest link. It's our merchant marine that keeps our supplies moving overseas. But right now, there's a serious shortage of men in the merchant marine. The shortage is so acute that during 1945, 49,000 highly skilled seamen and officers will be needed to see that our supply lines keep pace with our fighting men. Experienced men with licenses of certificates in the following categories are needed immediately: mates, engineers, ABs, firemen, oilers, and water tenders. And if you're an experienced seaman in one of those categories, enlist now. The need is urgent. You can apply at once by wiring collect to Merchant Marine, Washington, D.C., and be sure to give your rating or license and your address. Remember, that's Merchant Marine, Washington, D.C. This is the National Broadcasting Company.